Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
One day, this lonely, nerdy quantum physicist goes to a bar. And he's sitting there on the bar stool. There's an empty stool next to him. And he's just looking and concentrating really intently on the stool next to him. And the bartender's like, goes up to him and he says, hey, notice you're staring at the bar stool. What's going on here? And the physicist says, well, I'm using the power of my consciousness to visualize myself in a parallel universe where there's this beautiful woman sitting beside me talking to me. And the bartender says, well, there are a lot of beautiful women in the bar today. Why don't you just visualize one of them sitting next to you? And the nerdy quantum physicist says, yeah, right, like that would happen. So today we're talking about living the truth we know, taking action. So we're moving beyond the visualizing to the actual, to the action. So this is the fourth part in our four-part series. Reverend Michael and Reverend Karen shared with you in the last 3 weeks our Unity Principles 1 through 4. And so now we're going to be focusing on the fifth principle, which is living. It's not enough to know the truth teachings, we've got to live them. We've got to live the truth that we know. So you probably think, now that you've got all 5 principles, that you got it all covered, right? You know all the unity principles and you got the complete set. Well, the thing is, there are a whole lot of unity principles. There are so many teachings, and sometimes it can be difficult to distill them down into just a few that can really clearly express our message. And you might have come into this situation where perhaps you're a fundamentalist coworker, or your Catholic sister, or somebody who doesn't go to this church says, what are they teaching you over at Unity of Houston? Don't they have a pyramid there? Like, what's going on? What are you learning at that church? And so you go, I love unity. Unity is just everybody's so loving, and they teach that God is good, and they believe in Jesus, and it's just a great place, And they go, that sounds good. It just sounds just like my church. You go, wait a minute. No, there's something different about our churches, and how do I articulate that in a way that I can share what we believe in, and what's different and what makes unity unique, because we want to share that. So these 5 basic principles, they didn't come around in our unity teachings until 100 years into unity. Unity began in 1889 by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, and they discovered these principles when they were healing their bodies, healing their finances, and they discovered these. They began teaching them, and coming around 100 years later, it was asked of the president of Unity School of Christianity, she's the great-granddaughter of the Fillmores, Connie Fillmore Bazzi, was asked to to condense the unity teachings into 5 principles. And so it was challenging, and she followed her guidance. She did a lot of research, and she put these 5 together. And that's how they came together in 1989. And so they've been brought to us in that way. And so it's a great way to articulate our message to people who want to know what's unity about. You've got the 5 principles. You've got your toolkit to tell them what unity is in a clear way, and also for us to know for ourselves, to remember that truth in a way that we can quickly connect with in order to make changes in our lives. That's the whole purpose, is really that these teachings are practical. Unity is called practical Christianity. We've been called that because it's not just about learning a dogma or a theology, being able to know it at the level of intellect where you could repeat it back to someone. That's important. That's the first step. And then we take what we've learned and we apply it to make a positive change in our lives. That's what makes us different, is that really it's practical and useful for transforming our lives in a wonderful way. So let's review the principles that we've had so far. The first principle is that there is only one presence and one power in the universe and as my life, and that is? Okay, you've been paying attention. That is God, and God is? And God is good when? All the time. Nice. All right, you guys got it. You've mastered the first principle. You're great. So if I'm one with God and God is good, that means that I'm good. So that's the second principle. I'm good. I'm one with God. I have the potential to fully express my divinity in the way that Jesus Christ demonstrated for us. So it's said that we have, looking at the second principle, there's a spark of divinity. There's that light, that potential within us. You can call it the Christ, you can call it your divine nature, your higher self, you could even call it your Buddha nature. Whatever works for you, that really helps you to understand and know that your true essence is divine, and we're here to unfold that in a greater way into our experience. And so the third principle is the law of mind action, and the way that we simply explain that is thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. We are creators of our experience. God created us, right? We are created in the image and likeness, and that image and likeness is not our bodies, right? Because our bodies look all different. We know God doesn't have a body. God is divine mind. God is that Christ, the higher consciousness, right? The absolute realm of infinite divine ideas. And so in order to express those into our lives, we use the law of mind action, which is mind idea expression, which we use to co-create or create. We really are creating through our consciousness, bringing that higher thinking, divine ideas into manifestation into our lives. So we know that that's how it works. That's how we express our divine nature using the law of mind action. That's the third one. We create our experiences. The fourth one is on the practice, the tools that we use, prayer and meditation. So prayer and meditation is the way that we align our consciousness with God-mind. We use denials and affirmations. Reverend Karen trained us so well last Sunday in how to apply that. So check out that message if you weren't here, and learn how we can use our prayer and meditation practice to bring forth greater wisdom, prosperity, healing, everything good into our lives. So these are powerful teachings. We can study them, we can learn them, we can know them by heart. But really, if they're just at the level of intellect, if we're not applying them into our lives, they're just a bunch of good feeling ideas. It's important that we apply them and actualize them into our lives. So now we finally get to do that. We get to take these principles into action. Demonstration is one of our goals as truth students, as truth practitioners, what we often call ourselves in unity. We know that when we hold spiritual truth in mind, it will realize itself in our lives. That's how Spirit works. Often this comes with outer changes, new actions and approaches that we can take in our lives as we're guided by Spirit. And so the nerdy quantum physicist, he had a misunderstanding of spiritual principle, right? He thought that he could just envision his dream person sitting next to him having a conversation with them. That's a misunderstanding. That's something that happened a lot when the movie The Secret came out. How many of you saw The Secret, the film The Secret? Right? There are people who you might know that after they saw The Secret, they went home, they quit their jobs, and they just started visualizing the life that they wanted. They imagined the home, the car, the career, everything, and they thought that it would just, appear for them. And these people found themselves without a job, without a home, whatever, that it just didn't happen. Well, why didn't that happen for them? It didn't happen because they're missing principle number 5, to take action. There's something that they needed to do. If you want to win the lottery, you've got to buy a lottery ticket, right? There's an action that needs to be taken. And so that's a very important part. We don't want to miss out on that 5th principle. The first 4 principles are about shifting our consciousness before we take action. So we want to make sure that we're applying these principles in sequence and understanding where we are getting into alignment with the good that we want to experience before we change our behavior. Otherwise, we'll just continue to produce the same results in our lives. So for example, you want to experience greater prosperity in your life. You want to have more money and just whatever, a new home, a new car, that kind of thing. And so what you know to do is to work harder, to put in more hours, or just really focus on just making it happen, putting that energy, making it happen. And you're working more, and the bills seem to be coming in more. And it just seems to be becoming more stressful. You're more tired. You just feel like you have no time in your life. But you have this vision of what you want. And the problem is that your focus, why this prosperity isn't coming through for you, is that you're focusing on what you don't have. You're putting your attention on, well, I don't have enough money to make these bills. I don't have enough in my life. Your attention is on the have-not aspect. If you have a negative attitude toward money, if you believe in lack, fear of loss, you anticipate not having enough, this is what Jesus termed a have-not consciousness. So he talked about this in the parable of the talents. And in that parable, Jesus said, from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. I always thought that sounded kind of harsh. Like, oh man, those have nothing. But he's talking about consciousness. Because if it's about that you believe you have nothing. If you believe you have nothing, your focus is on the lack. And so what you put your attention on increases in your consciousness and your experience. Maybe you have a lot, and you're focusing on the one thing that you don't have, and it feels like you have less. It feels like you have less because that's where your attention is. Jesus encouraged us to switch to a have consciousness. When you focus on prosperity, an abundance of prosperity appears. When you're recognizing what you have, what's working in your life, it grows in your consciousness and in your experience. So Jesus also said, for all those who have, more will be given, and they will have abundance. So again, talking about consciousness. You won't just have, you'll have even more because it's expanding in your awareness. You're recognizing with gratitude all the good, all the blessings in your life, and you begin to see it more and more and more and experience more prosperity. So my question for you this morning is, do you have a have or a have-not consciousness? How do I know? How do I know? Well, what am I speaking about? When I talk to my friends, my family, my coworkers, am I talking about all the problems in my life and all the things that aren't working, all the things that could be better, and just focusing on the negative and what's missing? Or am I praising what is good? Am I seeing the good? Am I calling forth the good? Looking for that which is working in my life, feeling gratitude, letting go of any kind of resentment for what we think is appearing to be missing in our lives. You know, the truth is that we're always living the fifth principle. We're always living the truth that we know. We can't not, double negative, can't not live the truth that we know. It's just not possible. The thing is that we live it at the level of our consciousness. At the level of our consciousness. So if our consciousness is low, if we're looking at lack, if we're just seeing everything in the world that's evil or negative or whatever, that's the experience that we're going to have. That is where our locus of control is, in our consciousness. We can create our own experience in our consciousness. So what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the have? Are you focusing on the have-not? I guarantee you have. You have so much in your life. So focus on that and allow that to bring forth greater prosperity in your life. In her book, The 5 Principles, Unity Minister Ellen Davenport explains that we can use the first 4 principles as a handy checklist before taking action in our lives. So I invite you to participate in a bit of visualization with me and to consider a situation you'd like to change in your life. And just close your eyes and take a deep breath. Just bring to mind a situation that you'd like to change. And so I'm going to share with you a few questions, and hold in mind that situation as you consider these. Do I affirm divine intelligence and love in this situation? Do I remember my own divinity and that of others involved? Do I take responsibility for attracting this situation into my experience? And do I know that its outcome for me will match my thoughts and feelings about it? Have I aligned myself with God, the universe, the good, and received guidance before I act? Take a deep breath. I invite you to bring your attention back into this space. So if you answered yes to all those questions, then you're ready to take action. If you answered no to any or all of those questions, then it's time to revisit principles 1 through 4 before you take action. It's time to shift your consciousness around that situation. My students, I teach classes here, I teach metaphysics and spiritual classes, and often I'm asked the question, how do I know if the direction that I'm hearing, if the guidance I'm receiving, if it's divine guidance, or if it's ego? If it's ego, it's my limited ego-based thinking. And that's a great question. It's a great question because it's important to be able to discern that. That's part of our spiritual practice, is learning how to listen, understanding the voice of ego, the voice of spirit. And so the way that I answer that question is how I know for myself is how does it feel? If it's from spirit, if there's a sense of reassurance, there's a sense of alignment, there's a sense of peace. There's a knowingness that I'm headed in the right direction. It feels good. If it's from ego, it tends to be reactive. It tends to be impulsive. There tends to be a charge to it, an edginess to it. And I know, maybe I don't need to take action on that just yet, because that just really feels like I have to do it to get some kind of, there's some kind of charge there. That's the way that I assess it for myself. Really, our feelings are there to support us in our spiritual awareness. So getting in touch with your body, how you feel as you hold that idea. Does it feel good? If it feels good, then good feels good. Good leads you into making good choices. If it feels negative, if it feels stressful, a lot of anxiety, bad feels bad. And then notice your feelings and let them support you in making the choices in your situation. Living the truth is really more about how we show up for whatever we choose to do with our lives, rather than trying to change the world. It's really who we are being. It's a beingness rather than a doingness. And when I really first started experiencing these principles working in my life, I wanted to go out and tell everybody about it. And I don't know if you felt the same way, but that I really just wanted to share these teachings with everyone. It's just so powerful, and I knew they would really make a difference for people. And so I recognized that as I've continued my studies, and that really the difference that we make is when we're applying the principles and really showing up in the truth that we know. And people go, wow, you seem different, and you're really peaceful. What's going on with you? What are you doing? How do you have a life like, I want to experience a life like that. And that's how we really share who we are and share the message of these teachings. And so I check in with myself. Is the action that I'm taking when I'm showing up in my day-to-day life, when I'm showing up as a mom or a wife, a minister, a coworker, a friend, a daughter, am I showing up in the truth that I know? Am I coming from a consciousness of spirit, of oneness? Is my ego in service to spirit? Am I being love and peace? When our beingness is in alignment with spirit, then we naturally take action that's loving and peaceful. We have to understand that our consciousness does have an impact on the world, and it has an impact, especially in our own world, our own experience. I've heard people say that, unity principles work when things are going great. They work when when everything's going great, but when things get tough, when I'm really going through a challenge, they just don't work for me anymore. And so I think about that, and I think, well, the problem with that is that when we face a challenge in our life, something that is, just really gets us into a stressful place, we tend to revert back to our old patterns. We're not in alignment with our higher thinking. We can't get into fight, flight, or freeze. We're reacting rather than taking conscious action. And that's why there's that seeming thought that unity principles aren't working. Now, the thing is that you've got to apply them. And these principles were created for when times are tough. When times are tough, that's when the rubber meets the road. That's when you really need to use these principles. And Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, like I said before, that founded Unity, they were going through very big challenges in their lives, health-wise, finance-wise, and they used these principles to transform their lives and then taught them to others. They're really meant for the times when, great times, yes, and for the times when we're really struggling and need that spiritual support, because they do work. They're very practical. So what do you do? What do you do when you're sick, when you're broke, when you're struggling, you're brokenhearted, and you're in pain? What do you do? Do you go to your principles? Do you go to spiritual principle? Do you react out of pain? When we can make peaceful, loving choices day by day in our regular everyday lives, that is how we contribute to creating heaven on earth, which is what we're here to do. No one expects that you're going to radically change the world in your life, but to use these teachings to make a difference in your own world. And even Jesus Christ, he didn't overthrow the Roman Empire. He didn't establish peace on earth. Mother Teresa didn't eradicate poverty. And this is what she said. She said, we feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less without that drop. The people who we remember as saints and avatars, those highly spiritual people, we remember them not so much for how they changed the world, but really for the consciousness that they showed up in, the peace that they were, and their deeper understanding of the human condition and their empathy for others. That's what we remember, really what makes a difference. Mahatma Gandhi was known for his peaceful presence and for his nonviolent movement that led to India's independence from British rule. He understood that finding God required finding peace with others. He said the two are just synonymous. This is what he said. I want to find God, and because I want to find God, I have to find God along with other people. I don't believe I can find God alone. If I did, I would be running to the Himalayas to find God in some cave there. But since I believe that nobody can find God alone, I have to work with people. I have to take them with me. Alone, I can't come to him. So if we want to experience a peaceful world, we've got to be the peace. This is something that we know in Unity. So what does that look like? What does that look like in a day-to-day situation? Well, it looks like being patient when we're getting into the grocery line with our cart. We're ready to go. We've got 8 items. And some mom with a baby in the cart, and she's got a full cart of groceries. She just comes right in front of us, into the line. And you're like, oh, but I was supposed to be. It's being patient and compassionate. Being present, being loving, being understanding. It's when you're sitting at the red light and you're running late for work and you really want to get going and the light turns green and the person in front of you doesn't move right away. And do you lay on the horn? Come on, go. Or do you take that moment? Can I just be conscious in this moment? Take a deep breath. Maybe this is just a reminder to center myself and just be patient and wait. So how are you showing up as peace in those little everyday situations where you could be that, you can choose to be that person who, aggravates someone and ruins their day, or you can just make the choice for peace and show up in the way that we intend to show up as love. And so being peace really means looking to be the solution, rather than focusing on the problem, whining about it, creating the drama story around it. That's so easy to do and can be so fun, right? Sometimes, but really looking to be the solution, right? Letting go of that ego trip that we get off of that, and focusing on what is empowering, what is positive, what's going to make a difference. Because when we focus on what we dislike, we empower that. We give it energy, and it takes on a life of its own. We want to let that go. So this week, I shared a bit about it at Wednesday Night Live. I got into a difficult situation that I rather wish it didn't happen, but it did. I was over at the stoplight at Fountain View and Southwest Freeway, and I was rear-ended. And man, I sure wanted to really be angry about that because this is my car, is my baby. I keep it really so nice. And I thought, well, maybe I didn't get damaged. I get out, I look, it's damaged. So I thought about in the moment, flashback to a time where I had an accident, years past, and I got out of my car, and I was like, why did you do, what would made you do that? And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do that. This is not going to be this experience. I'm going to show up as the love in this experience. I'm going to be at peace. I'm going to see it unfolding in divine order. I asked the driver, to pull over. She did. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this different? I introduced myself to her, and we shook hands. I said, I realize you didn't do this on purpose. You didn't do this on purpose. And she gave me her insurance information. No problem. Called the insurance. They sent an adjuster the next day. They evaluated my car. He was really friendly. He was asking me about my dog. It was actually like all in all, except that my car got hit. It was a positive experience. But why was it a positive experience? Well, I chose to show up. Even though I did feel stressed and nervous about it, I'm going to show up in love anyway. And so that's how we apply these principles, is in those tough times, we choose to show up as love and peace anyway, even though we might not feel like it. And, if I'd been nasty, if I'd yelled at her, if I had, she might have driven off. I don't know. It could have shown up differently than it did. And it all is, unfolding in divine order. So those are the choices that we make moment to moment. Be the peace, be the love. So let's commit to creating heaven on earth this week and throughout our lives by living the truth that we know. Just want to share with you a couple of scripture verses before I close from James chapter 1, verse 22. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Philippians 4:9 says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Please affirm with me, God is good.
God is good.
I am good.
I am good.
I live the truth I know in every thought, word, and action.
I live the truth I know in every thought, word, and action.
And so it is. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Jeanmarie, for that wonderful reminder.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.